there I am. Too many moving parts, everybody. Many moving parts. It is a fabulous day, and at least it is in my home. I hope that it is in yours as well. You know that we're going out live every week here at In the Limelight. I am Clarissa Burt, your host, and with a very important message. You know, with the COVID crisis going on and with a lot of difficulties in being at home, in close quarters, you know, there's stress, there's a lot of tension going on. People aren't really being able to get out, you know, and sort of let off some steam. So we are coming to you every week live with a very, very important message. And that is the message that there are a lot of women, especially, not only, but mostly living in situations that are extremely dangerous with an abuser. You know that I have been bringing on domesticshelters.org as much as I possibly can. It is an organization that is, an organization that is charity work, that does charity work, and they are helping women and children and some men get away from abusers. There are more, I think, than 2,500 shelters all over the United States. They're starting to work their way into Canada as well. And I wanted to bring on a domestic shelters, but a domestic abuse expert. Here she is right now. We're going to get her on there. I think she's there. She went somewhere and came back quickly. I did see that, but that's okay. All good. I just wanted to say hello to Rita Smith. Rita, your bio is extremely impressive when it comes to being an expert in everything domestic violence. You are a nationally recognized expert in domestic violence. You have been interviewed by hundreds of newspapers, and you know, have lots of all kinds of kudos to you, from the Today Show to Good Morning America, the Oprah Winfrey Show. You started back in 1981 as a shelter crisis line advocate. I'd like to hear some more about that as we move along. But what is it that made you want to work with women mostly, again, and children that were in abusive situations and needed to get out?
Well, I think initially when I was just getting out of college, I thought I knew what my path was going to be, and I thought I was going to be working with emotionally disturbed children most of the time. That was kind of what I had seen myself doing.
Right.
And so, I did that for about a year and a half here in Colorado, and then was looking for another job and saw an ad in the newspaper. That's how we found jobs back in 1981.
Right.
That basically said counselor, and I thought, yeah, I'm one of those. So I called for an interview and got to the location, and they asked me what I knew about battered women, and it was a very new term. I got my degree in psychology, so I hadn't learned a thing about it in reality, but I kind of bluffed my way through that interview, and I had a second interview, and they hired me, and it just something about the women and children I worked with there changed my life and changed my whole path and direction. And I've been doing domestic violence and sexual assault work ever since. So.
Right. Every time that I come on here, I really implore women that are being abused, or if you know of someone that is being abused, to get the help that they need. There are many women that are living in, shall we call it, shame. They're feeling shameful about what's happening to them in their lives. Some of them believe that they deserve what's happening in their lives. And most think that there is really no way out. He's got me, in a corner financially. I wouldn't know what to do. And there could never possibly be life after this abusive situation. What say you?
Well, first I'd like people to recognize that what happened to them has nothing to do with them. Someone is choosing to use violence to control them. Someone is using verbal abuse to make them feel bad about themselves.
Right.
It's very effective, but the reality is that it's not about them. It's about the person who's making that choice. And so if they can hang on to that kind of inner person and tap into those skills that they've always had, there's a way out. As long as they pay attention, they're flexible, they take the time they need to do it safely on their schedule, because they're the only ones who know the danger they're in. So they need to be able to plan it
Right.
Effectively. But I have worked with so many, mostly women, who have gotten
Right.
away, who have done it through a plan that gives them a strategy. And rebuilding their life takes time, absolutely. It's not
Mhm.
easy, but it
Right.
can be done.
But it can be done. Right.
Yes.
Okay, everybody, I'm going to be putting back the ticker. Let's see. Yeah, there's Rita. And then let's see. There it is. It's domesticshelters.org. I'm going to leave that there just for a second. Everybody, again, go over to that website. I can't even tell you the amount of resources that are there just waiting for you. There are shelters that you could go to. There are, again, there are people on the other end of a telephone just waiting for your call. Rita, how has COVID affected the shelters that you know of, but mostly how has it affected or had an impact on the victims of domestic violence that you know?
Well, I think probably the biggest impact is that they're forced to stay um, in a contained environment 24 hours a day with their abuser.
Right.
And prior to this outbreak, people at least had some respite because one or both of them went to work, and so they had some time away. There was some opportunity to try to figure out where the resources were and to look for information without them being constantly overseen. And so this forced isolation in respect with their abuser has made it more dangerous because they don't have access to easily find resources.
Right. Right. A lot of the shelters, as I understand it, and you may know more than I do, have decided to stay open nonetheless. There are, again, and I really want to, big shout out to, these are first responders, if you will. Can I say that safely?
Yes,
These are people that are waiting in shelters for you and putting maybe, I'm not going to say at risk, but you never know. I mean, so in these times, these are people that are saying, doesn't matter, we're still here. We're going to stay here. We're not going anywhere. Get in touch with us. Get away from your abuser. I really have to, take my hat off to that kind of fortitude.
Yeah. Yes, they absolutely are open. They have made some concessions. Some of them. What I'm hearing is that they are reducing sometimes the intake numbers that they have so that they can provide every family with their own bedroom. So previously, they might have a bedroom with 5 beds, and they might have a family of 3 and a family of 2 in that same room.
Right.
They're not doing that right now, I don't think.
Right.
Yeah. That's to try to keep some isolation down. They have increased their cleaning opportunities and efforts to meet CDC guidelines so that they're actually reducing the risk of transmission.
Right.
But the reality is it's a difficult job. It is dangerous because you're talking about someone who has no qualms about hurting somebody they love.
Right.
So the people who do this work absolutely are courageous and going to work.
Very. Yeah, because a lot of time the abuser will, just thinks that it's none of their darn business, isn't it? And so they get, really highly upset, if not very indignant, about the fact that somebody else would step in between himself or herself and the victim. So, I really do have to, again, I take off my hat to these people that are there, that are waiting and open arms to be able to get you out of a situation. Rita, every time I'm on here, I say, if it hurts, it isn't love. And I've heard many women along the way that are abused in some way, shape, or form say, but I love him and he loves me. Well, I'm sure you've heard that.
I absolutely believe that she loves him. And what I think is true, what you said, is that if someone is hurting you, they can't possibly love you.
Be loving you, right?
In any real deep way.
Yeah.
They may say they love you. They may act like they love you. They may say they feel remorse. They may buy you things that you've always wanted.
Right.
But the trade-off should never, ever be your safety. The trade-off should never, ever be your self-esteem.
Yeah.
You can find somebody who actually loves you, that loves you in every way possible.
Yeah. There's never an okay time for anybody to put their hands on you ever. And, there's not only physical violence, there are a lot of many different types of violences. There are a lack of compromise. Lots of times, these are some of the red flags that happen. Controlling even things like the way you dress, he's your mother and he's not. And so they sabotage of your friendships. They can sabotage your family. In the sense that you can't talk to them anymore. They absolutely have control over who you can and cannot talk to. They will build you up. Oh, they'll build you up, but then they break you down, right? So even psychologically, they're working on you frequently. And the constant checking in. Where are you? Who are you with? What are you doing? When are you coming home? Who are you really with? Why are you lying to me? I mean, that kind of thing. There are so many case scenarios of what abuse really is and what it means. How is it that we can support our friends or families at risk without kind of putting our own selves at risk too of retaliation, right?
Because that is a risk factor. I do think that intervening has to be done with caution and care, and the people who should be intervening mostly are law enforcement. If you feel like somebody is at risk, or you're worried about them, check in with them as regularly as you can. Find out how they're doing. Maybe prior to this, you might have developed a safety word where somebody had a friend or a family that they set up to let you know. If they say peanut butter or whatever it is, that I need help.
Sure.
I know I just heard from a law enforcement police chief today who was talking about an incident where a neighbor in a multi-family unit heard something happening in the apartment next to them and called the police. She heard something about a knife, and so she called, and the police came and they got into the apartment, and he had beaten her up pretty badly, and he did have a knife. He ran from them, but so there are things that you can do. Just paying attention, be vigilant. Because they literally are a prisoner right now and can't safely access help for themselves.
Yeah. When I was on last week with Amanda Kippert, we were talking about, how there was a police officer that actually died from responding, and it happens all the time, but it did, there's one case that I knew of last week that police officer died because he answered a domestic violence call. And so it's real. I mean, it's real. It's not always just a hit, a smack, or a punch, or a shove. When there are weapons involved, it obviously escalates, and very, very quickly. So how is it that we can support services in this health crisis? How can we help the shelters? What is it that we can do? Again, for domesticshelters.org, we see on the ticker. Again, go over there, everyone. Get I can't stress enough all the information, the resources, and the help that you can get over there. If you know of someone being abused, please let them know about this website. They are there for you. Okay, Rita. So how can people support the services during this health crisis?
Well, I think the most important thing is that if you go to domesticshelters.org, you can put in your zip code in the search box, and a list of local programs near you will come up. And you can click on those links, and you can see what services they provide. Many of them are participating in a program we have called Amazon Wish List, which they have items listed that they desperately need right now, and you can actually go on Amazon, buy them, and have them sent to the shelter. Certainly monetary donations are great, but products that they use all the time, like diapers and paper towels and cleaning supplies and the kind of things that they don't have to spend their limited resources on, it is a helpful thing. So there's lots of different strategies, but locally supporting right now that you can do online is through domesticshelters.org. Really easy to find out who's near you.
Yeah. And you can follow them also on social. They're on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram as well. But to get the information you're really looking for, if you're trying to get away from an abusive situation, if you know of someone that's trying to get out of an abusive situation, that's the place that you're going to want to go. Gosh, I come on every weekend, and I all I do is get the word out, and it's or help to get the word out. And it just never seems, it ceases to amaze me, the kind of impact that this kind of abuse has, not only on the victim, but there are so many victims when it comes to, there are children that are involved. Sometimes there are animals involved, your own family that knows what's going on and can do very little. If you decide you don't want to go, there's very little that anyone can do to help you get away from something as horrific as domestic abuse. Rita, what can we say? How can we hearten, if you will, women that are on the brink? They just really need a push or a pull. I don't know what, to make that final break.
Well, I think what's important for friends and family to realize is that while it's hard to watch someone you care about making choices you think are not in their best interest,
yeah,
the most important thing you can do is to stay connected and to keep giving them positive information. You don't deserve to be treated this way. You're a good person. There's life after this if you want it. I'm never walking away. I'll be here for you always.
Right.
Because every time you shore them up, it makes it more likely that they'll be able to walk away and stay away. It is a very hard process to extract yourself from an abuser.
Yeah.
And they may have to take several different attempts before they get completely away.
Yeah.
Just stay with them. Just keep reaffirming for them they deserve to be treated with respect, and you'll be there for them when they decide to make a difference.
Yeah. I think not feeling judged is a huge part of that. Like you just said, I'm going to be here for you anyway. I wish you'd make the decision sooner than later.
Right.
But you're going to learn, and when it's that time, we're going to be here for you. I always come back around also, Rita, to a very low sense of self-esteem in a lot of these cases. Not all, but in a lot of the cases. And maybe when you say, a lot of people don't have families or support system. And life has been pretty brutal to them, and they just don't have a high sense of self-esteem. I could never move on. I could never be good enough. I could never get a job. I could never be smart enough. And I think that we just need to really get the message across that is not true. Those are stories that someone either told you or that you made up in your head, but that is not true. And especially when you see the help, the warmth, and the open arms that you're going to get from people that are waiting for you at domesticshelters.org. They're there to help you through every step of the process. Am I right when I say that?
Well, certainly the programs that are listed there are 24/7, and the National Domestic Hotline, if you can safely use a phone, is certainly available 24/7. But I do think that it's important that people understand that there is a person who is actively participating in keeping her self-esteem as low as possible, so she doesn't have the will to make a difference in her life. And so, you're working against somebody who's very committed to her failure. You have to be as committed to her success.
Right. I actually have Donna Marie Junker Lukens, who's come on and said such an important message. Thank you. Another woman says, April Schnurmacher says, do women without children have a harder time leaving an abuser?
No, I actually think women with children might find it harder to leave because he'll threaten them. He'll threaten to take them away and she'll never see them again. And unfortunately, abusers are very effective at winning in custody in family courts. I don't understand it. It makes no sense.
Right.
But those threats are often real.
Right.
But nobody has an easy time of getting away from an abuser because they're committed to you not succeeding at that. And they will use every tactic, including violence, sometimes lethal violence, to make sure you fail.
Well, that's why you get a plan.
Right.
Right, Rita? That's why we get a plan. And there are blueprints and there are plans, and domesticshelters.org can help you with that as well. I've got Art Kirsch here that's saying, I suspect being quarantined makes it even more difficult for victims to report abuse. Rita is a terrific interview.
Thanks.
Is that true? Do you think that's true, though? Is it more difficult when you're in quarantine to get away? I guess,
Yeah, I think because you may not be able to get to the phone and usually safer. The other thing I think is that they may feel hesitant to call first responders because of what's going on around them, and they're afraid
Yeah.
that somebody's dying
It would
from
escalate.
respiratory, and so you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
they may not be willing.
Right. But I'll tell you what, Rita, and I'm going to answer Art as well. I'm going to say when it gets bad enough, it's bad enough. You know, when you're ready to go, there are no excuses. You're just ready to go. When you know that there's a shelter there waiting for you, I'm going to say make the break. You're always going to have to make a trip to a post office or the supermarket for more toilet paper or whatever it is. You know, there's always a way.
Right.
Yeah, there's always a way. You can get to a police station. You can get. I mean, if you really want to get up and go, you're really going to get up and go, and that's the way I kind of see it. Just start getting a plan. Get over to domesticshelters.org, get your plan, get it in place, implement it. Rita, help me when I say, and then make it a reality.
Yeah, there are lots of different strategies and lots of different articles on domesticshelters.org that can help you process how you're going to leave,
right,
and how you're going to stay free,
right,
and how you're going to deal with a financial crisis if it comes up. So
yeah,
planning is a good strategy.
Yeah.
But if your life is in danger, get out the door, and
Sure.
you can get help later.
Yeah, absolutely. Rita, I hope that I've asked you everything that you wanted me to ask you. If there's anything I didn't, please add it. As much as I can, I will be on here, and I will continue to scream from the rooftops for domesticshelters.org and women and children and sometimes animals that are being abused in the home. And so, if there's any parting words that you have for anyone that might be listening that is in need of help or knows of someone that is in need of help, please say it.
Well, the only thing I can say that's important enough for you to hear is that it's not your fault. You have a right to feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
Take whatever steps you need to get out that door.
Yeah, absolutely. Rita, I can't thank you enough for your time. I really, really hope that we were able to change some lives here today, and for sure to touch some lives. Let's and get them out the door.
Yeah.
to safer and happier days, everybody. To safer and happier days should you need the help of domesticshelters.org. Rita, thanks again. Appreciate you being with us.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.